New Louisville transfer portal commitment J'Vonne Hadley's versatility is going to do wonders for the Cardinals on the court next fall. We'll explain why on today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. As always, I want to take this time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. The Cardinals picked up their fourth portal commitment of the offseason. Colorado wing J'Vonne Hadley is joining Pat Kelsey's squad. His versatility is going to do wonders for the Cardinals. Louisville also going after Oakland star Trey Townsend. He has announced that he will be taking 3 official visits, and one of those is to Louisville. I wouldn't get too excited just yet. However, we'll explain why here in the upcoming show. We'll also discuss a new 2025 football commitment. 3-star wide receiver from Georgia, Jordan Allen, will join Jeff Brom's Flyville 25 class. A lot of good news, I would say, on this Tuesday of April. It feels like it started out kind of rough with all of the, I guess you'd say, quote-unquote, announcements that insert player name here was entering the transfer portal for the Louisville football team. It seems like those statements and those reports were walked back because of the inaccuracy of them, but it seemed like a lot of Louisville fans were on edge. But, things were relieved a bit when the Cardinals picked up their fourth portal commitment on the basketball side. J'Vonne Hadley from Colorado. He was down between the Cardinals and USC, visited the 502 this past weekend, had an announcement slated for Tuesday, and alas, to not many people's surprise, he ended up becoming a Cardinal. This is a very solid addition. Looking at the statistic numbers, this past season for Colorado, the 6'6" senior from St. Paul, Minnesota, averaged 11.6 points per game, 6.0 rebounds, 2.4 assists, shooting the ball 53.8% from the field, 41.7% from behind the arc, and 83.9% from the free throw line. He joins Terrence Edwards, Rain Smith, and James Scott as the beginning of the roster construction for the 2024-25 season. We mentioned on yesterday's show, and I want to once again reiterate that J'Vonne Hadley, when you watch this game, one term comes to mind, in my opinion. That is versatility. It's going to do wonders for the Cardinals on the court next season. When you talk about his versatility, you have to talk about as a creator, as a passer, and as a defender. As a creator, has a very interesting offensive skill set. The scoring arsenal is fairly balanced. Most of his offense is coming around the rim. Actually, about 3/4 of his total shot numbers this past season were all in the paint. He shot 62% from the field around the rim, so that is obviously very solid efficiency. But he's not just a player that is utilized as a slasher. I would pretty much say that if you were determining what player archetype he was on NBA 2K, slasher's probably the player type that you're going with, but he also can shoot the ball fairly decently. Now, you wonder if the shooting numbers are an outlier because at Northeastern, he shot 16.7% as a freshman. He went to the community college ranks where he was a first-team All-American, then went to Colorado. In the 2022-23 season, he attempted 1 3-pointer, and he did not make it. He shot 0% from the three-point line. But those numbers increased drastically, both in made shots and overall attempts. He was 20 of 48 this past season from behind the arc, a huge rise in what we're used to seeing. He shot 41.7% from the three-point line. So it makes you wonder whether or not that this is an outlier or if this is the norm that we are going to see moving forward. I will tell you that Hadley's shot doesn't really possess any mechanical issues. It has a very, very solid shot. One thing that really intrigues me about his game is that even though those numbers improved a ton, he wasn't really ever like a true sharpshooter. Even if he's respectable shooting, you're probably not considering him a sharpshooter. He was 82nd percentile in the country when it comes to catch and shoot situations. In an offense like Pat Kelsey's that utilizes a ton of motion, delayed handoffs, passing the ball around, getting guys in spots to make good shots. Efficiency needs to match the pace of play, but this is a fast-playing offense that's going to fire up a ton of threes. And having a player that's in the 82nd percentile in catch and shoot situations, that's pretty solid. What's more impressive is that he ranked in the 97th percentile in spot-up situations. So in the half court, the spot-up situations, he was absolutely, I don't even want to say fantastic. He was elite. 97th percentile, there's not much more you can do than that. Extremely efficient with the ball in his hands. More and more last season, got to put his scoring repertoire onto full display to where he averaged double-digit scoring. So he's a very crafty scorer. He likes to take the ball to the rim, can put the ball on the floor and get to the bucket, being 6'6", 205 pounds, solid body that utilizes his strength, but he can also shoot the ball. Also has a good amount of offense operating out of the post-up situations in the high paint to where at that point he is fantastic passing the ball with his back to the basket, has a 12% assist rate. So crafty as a passer, a versatile passer, can handle the ball. I'm not necessarily so sure that he's your primary. He might be your secondary, tertiary, likely ball handler that can create for himself and also create for others with his back to the basket, being 6'6", can play the 2 through the 4. So you have that versatility. Very, very good in transition. I think that's where his ball handling is really, really put to the test and on full display, is showing what he can do in transition. So he's a very crafty player, crafty on the offensive end. Defensively speaking, he can guard the 2 through the 4, and that switchability is something that I think is really going to help Kelsey's defense. That really, overall, over the past couple of seasons, really hasn't been all that good. One way you can improve that is getting a point of attack or multiple point of attack defenders, which I believe Hadley to be, where he can guard the 2 through the 4, agile enough to guard the guards, but also strong enough with good enough size to defend some players in the front court. So that versatility all over the place gives Pat Kelsey a lot of options in which he can utilize Hadley in. What's his role going to be? Well, it's hard to tell with any of these players until the roster is finalized. But at this point, I think that you're probably looking in one of 3 situations. Number one, he's going to start in the backcourt along with insert guard here in Terrence Edwards. I think he has guard-like skills that will allow him to be able to flourish in this system. So you're going to see a lot of 3-guard rotations for Louisville this year. The pace of play is high, so there's going to be a lot of rotating players coming in and out. And I think that it would make sense for him to play the 2 or the 3. There is a situation that I've seen a lot of people talking about as to whether or not he could play the small ball 4. I guess it is an option depending on who else you get to be your big man, because you will need some size. Now, granted, if you have 2 guards above 6 foot, 2 other players that are 6'6", and Terrence Edwards and J'Vonne Hadley, and then you have a forward that's around 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot, you could make that work with your 5-out system or the 4-in, 1-out system. So, or 4-out, 1-in system, I should say, not 4-in, 1-out. That would absolutely clog the paint. But I think that that's probably where one of the 2 situations is likely. At this point in time, I would venture into saying that he's probably going to start. Not a ton of confirmation there, but a player who averaged almost 12 points per game, solid defender, can affect the game in multiple different ways on both ends of the court. Would make sense for him to start. I guess there is the opportunity in which he is your sixth man off the bench, although I'm not necessarily so sure how realistic that's going to be, considering that, Iowa State, Michigan State, USC, some very good programs were in on Hadley. So very, very good addition for Pat Kelsey. I think the versatility, something that Kelsey is really prioritizing in the portal in a couple of different ways, but very, very solid addition to this team. I'm interested to see how Louisville continues to add more players, but there's going to be multiple visits as we go out throughout the duration of the week. Speaking of multiple visits, one official visit that is scheduled for this weekend is Oakland star Trey Townsend, probably a player that most Louisville fans have high up on their wish list. I wouldn't get excited just yet, and we'll explain why here after the break. Before we do that, I want to tell you about our friends and the title sponsor of the show, FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Also want to take this time to tell you about our friends over at Monopoly Go. I've been told I'm a competitive person. Yeah, I would definitely say I have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with your friends. You can charge them rent on iconic properties. You can also rob their vaults of riches, and the leaderboards show you exactly who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. It's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. Get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. Cardinal fans, just a reminder, Locked On NFL Mock Draft Live is airing on April 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, streaming on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft on April 17th at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, streaming live on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. I told you before the break that you shouldn't get too excited about Trey Townsend scheduling an official visit for Louisville just yet. The reason I say that is because very often in the transfer portal, do you see players forego the remaining official visits they have scheduled in favor of committing to a place in which they spent an early visit? We just saw this with Omar Ballo, the Arizona center. Had an official visit with Indiana and was scheduled to start a Louisville visit today, 2 days after the Indiana visit, and he ultimately cancels all of his visits and commits to Indiana. You see players that are now granted, they might just be seeing how much NIL is out there, but you have a better chance at landing said player if you have an earlier visit than if you do not have an earlier visit. Trey Townsend will be visiting Arizona beginning today. He'll then go to Ohio State before theoretically heading to Louisville this weekend. And if he does not make it to campus this weekend and instead commits to either Arizona or Ohio State, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. This stuff happens all the time. That's why you have to get quick visits. J'Vonne Hadley, first visit to Louisville, boom, the Cardinals closed the deal. This isn't like high school recruiting to where you weigh your options a ton. For transfer portal guys, most of them want to find their destination, make their visit, make sure everything is squared away, and boom, they're committing. So that's sort of the main thing we have to focus on here is the timing of the visit. It is great that he is theoretically going to be on campus, but it was also great that Omar Ballo was theoretically going to be on campus. Let's play the game and say that he does make it to campus. How significant is it? Well, if you're asking any Louisville fan that watched the NCAA tournament, they would tell you, I want Trey Townsend. The Oakland Star was fantastic against the rival Kentucky Wildcats, had 17 points and 12 rebounds against John Calipari's team in John Calipari's last game in Lexington. He had 30 and 13 against NC State in the overtime loss, played all 45 minutes for the Golden Grizzlies, the 6'6", 228-pound native of Oxford, Michigan, averaged 17.3 points per game, 8.1 rebounds per game, 3.1 assists per game, 1.3 steals per game, and all four of those categories Townsend led for Oakland. He was the do-it-all type guy. Jack Golke gets mentioned the most because of his three-point display that he showed against Kentucky, but it was Trey Townsend that helped get Oakland there, and Townsend was as good as advertised for the team in the NCAA tournament for the 14 seed that made a huge upset. Let's get to know Townsend a little bit more. He's from Michigan, so I believe that he has already visited or has unofficially visited Michigan and Michigan State. The fact that he's taking more official visits seems like a decision to commit to a Michigan school isn't imminent at this time, but it doesn't, it doesn't encourage me that Arizona and Ohio State, two teams that have done well in the transfer portal since the portal began, they've done well, and that doesn't make me feel good. But Townsend is your typical small ball four in a Pat Kelsey offense. Can stretch the floor, crafty around the rim, good rebounder, decent defender. Most of his attempts, over half of his attempts came from around the rim, 59%. He was 52% on, 59% field goal percentage. He shot 52% of his shots around the rim. Was a guy that loved to operate on the baseline. Think like Montrezl Harrell, who would get the ball down on the baseline and then immediately cut towards the basket or in the paint. That's sort of the same type of flavor that you will get from a guy like Trey Townsend. Not extremely quick or agile or athletic, but he's extremely strong. 6'6", 228 pounds, small ball 4, small ball 5 in this situation. Not a terrible three-point shooter. He shot 37.5% on just about an attempt per game. So he's shown that he can step out and hit the deep ball, but he's not a player that you're going to think is going to step out and shoot a ton. He shot 159 three-point attempts in his 4-year career, the career high coming 2 years ago where he shot 38.5% on 52 total attempts. But I think his skill set directly translates to the Power 5 level. He's shown that he can definitely compete at the Power 5 level against Power 5 teams. Most of his offense is going to come from post-up situations. He utilizes that quickness as a big man to go by more physically opposing big men, but utilize his size to go up against guys closer to his size. And like most of the guys that we've been talking about, has an over 10% assist rate, 16% assist rate for Townsend. That's very, very good for the position that he plays. The ball operates a lot through him. It flows through his hands. He's getting a ton of touches with how Louisville moves the ball, or how they probably will move the ball. I imagine Townsend would theoretically get maybe not as many touches, but still a good amount, not any to shake your head at. But offensively, he's fantastic. The main thing he has to be better is shooting off the dribble. Wasn't good at shooting off the dribble this season. I think one of the reasons that I'm not too worried about that is because he was pretty much the focal point for Oakland. Your scouting report started with Trey Townsend, and it ended pretty close to him as well. You had to respect guys like Jack Golke and company, but Trey Townsend led the team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, almost led the team in blocks. He was the heartbeat of the team, a do-it-all Swiss Army knife type player. He had a ton of responsibility, and the percentage of shooting off the dribble just really wasn't all that good. So I'm not really too worried. I think that with less of a focus on him in the offensive half court will actually help his statistical numbers and him be able to play well overall. He shot at 46% from the field this year. Not terrible. 78% for the free throw line again. Or I'm sorry, 78% for the free throw line. Not terrible as well, but very, very attentive on the offensive glass, which is something that Pat Kelsey definitely emphasizes. His teams in the past 5 years, 4 of those seasons, he had a top 20 team in terms of offensive rebounding percentage, according to KenPom. So Trey Townsend, very, very good player. And if he's able to make it to Louisville on campus for that official visit, you have to feel good about the Cardinals' chances of landing him because he hadn't committed to Arizona or Ohio State in this hypothetical. But who knows? This is airing on Tuesday. He could be committed elsewhere before the weekend. You just never know. Things change so quickly in the transfer portal, but I love that Louisville is trying to get involved here, and if they can get a commitment from Townsend, a starting 5 that includes Terrence Edwards, Trey Townsend, and J'Vonne Hadley would be incredibly skilled, and I'd be absolutely I would be absolutely excited. So we'll continue to talk about basketball recruiting throughout the week. I do want to switch gears and talk about football. The Cardinals have received a 2025 commitment, Jordan Allen from the state of Georgia. He's not your typical 3-star prospect, and we'll explain why here in just a moment after we tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. Whether you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. It has all the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's not just another job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you're in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The newest member of the Flyville 25 class, amidst seemingly a negative PR campaign against Louisville's NIL and their recruiting efforts, a commitment I felt like was just what this program needed. Jordan Allen, wide receiver from Buford High School in Buford, Georgia, committed to the Cardinals program on Tuesday afternoon. Allen is rated as the 689th best player in the country, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. Top 100 wide receiver in the class, top 70 player in the state of Georgia. Is a 2-sport athlete, track and field star as well. 10.98 in the 100-meter dash. Very, very solid. Really busted onto the scene this past season for Buford High School, which is very, very solid competition. And when you watch the film, he's very, very good in special team situations as a punt and a kick returner. But when he's on offense, he's mainly operating in the slot in high school, which I would expect to be sort of a similar role that he would play in a Brom offense. Jordan Allen is only 5'8", 170 pounds. So with that size, you would expect playing in the slot, a guy that's going to get the ball in a variety of different ways, whether it's end rounds, wide receiver screens, slants, deep routes. Jordan Allen can take the top off of a defense, but what impresses me most is his ability to break tackles and make something out of nothing. A lot of plays this past season for Buford, when she caught the ball around the let me slow down, around the line of scrimmage and turned a seeming no game or short yards gain into a long gain or even a touchdown. I mean, he is electric with the ball in his hands. He is absolutely electric, going down the field, whether it is on a deep route or a short field slant or an end around wide receiver screen. You have a lot of different opportunities to get him the ball and watch him flourish with not only the speed, but the quickness, the ability to change direction so quickly. That first step is dangerous. He explodes off the line of scrimmage and creates separation very, very easily. He's not your average 3-star level prospect because right now he has 33 offers. Multiple Power 5 teams. I'm going to read you off who the Power 5 offers are listed. Indiana, Maryland, Clemson, Colorado, Duke, Florida, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Kansas, Memphis isn't Power 5, Michigan, Mississippi State, NC State, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Central Florida, and many more. Utah. I forget with how the conferences are changing, who is in what conference now, but he's not your average 3-star level prospect. Now, whether or not schools like Georgia and Clemson and Florida are prioritizing Allen, that's a whole different situation, but they've seen enough to offer him. And mid 3-star level guys from the state of Florida, Georgia, Texas, California, even Ohio, those 3-star rankings hold a little bit more weight than if a 3-star player was from, the Midwest area, Northeast, Northwest. And that's no disrespect to any of the states out there, just more so of an indication of the high level of talent. Really talented players get very much underrated because of the sheer amount of talent in the area. I like this commitment. This is a type of player that I feel like is something that the type of player that can really play well in this offense. They have 5 commits so far. 3 of them are in the trenches, 2 offensive line, 1 defensive line. They have a quarterback commit in Mason Mims, and now they go into Georgia. First commitment in the state of Georgia for the class in the Southeast, you could say. Really outside of Alabama. But I like this move for Louisville. I think that you're going to have to replace a good amount of the receiving core this season or after this season because of the transfers coming in have 1 year. You're going to see players transferring out. It's very interesting to see how Jeff Brom is going to handle high school recruiting with players that have transferred here now opting to go elsewhere before even playing a single snap. The transfer portal is like the wild, wild west right now, and things are, sort of in the air in terms of how things are going to be settled. So I'm not necessarily so sure if that's going to affect the efforts of Jeff Brom in the high school ranks, if there's going to be more of an emphasis on the high school ranks. I think probably so. You're going to look to, not turn your whole team over via the portal every offseason. I think that Jeff Brom knows that. But I would expect this to be an impressive high school class. I could definitely see a senior season pushing Jordan Allen into a spot to where he could potentially be a top 500 player. So I like this commitment for the Cardinals. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. We will see you right back here tomorrow.